Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 43 of Petey's Awesome Guest Battle. And man, what guest stars I have tonight. I don't have not just one guest star, I have two guest stars. They're both voice acting legends. They both worked on shows like Gummy Bears and among others. They are Disney legends. My guest at this time is Miss Katie Leigh and of course, Will Ryan. How are you guys today?
Yay! Hi! Hey, Petey.
That's Peter to you.
It's
Hi, Peter.
such an honor to have both of you on. I mean, I've been a fan of both your work since I was like a 2-year-old lad.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
That makes you 102, right?
I do have a surprise for all three of you. Like, like how a genie has 3 wishes? Well, I got 3 surprises. Here's the first one. Like I mentioned before, you both worked on Gummy Bears.
Oh, great.
Oh my goodness.
That was on VHS?
Uh,
Is that? Oh, no, that's the DVD.
The DVD. But since you mentioned VHS, I also have this installed. The original VHS copy of Darkwing Duck, which, Katie, you were part of as Honker Muddlefoot.
Yes, I was.
And of course, this one, which takes me home because, you made on this show, you made me cry 3 different times when I was a kid, in a good way, and that is Muppet Babies.
Oh, well, thank you. That's totally far out.
Now, before we get into the voice questions, I do want to ask both of you is like, when was your first break into voice acting? Take me there.
Take him there.
You first? You want to go first?
No.
Oh, okay. I'll go first. My first break, I don't know. I don't know. It kind of, I don't know. Evolved. Yes. Thank you. That's why Katie's here.
That's
One
why
of the
we're
many
here,
reasons.
to help
Yes.
each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Evolved because, I studied acting when I was a kid, and then what did I do? Oh, I worked in radio for a while, actually behind the scenes initially. But when I was working behind the scenes in radio, I was working with a bunch of disc jockeys who didn't want to do character voices in commercials. I was writing and producing the commercials. So I would, out of bad luck or something, be stuck with all these parts that they didn't want to do. So I would do those. And then later on, I had a comedy team, and we did a lot of comedy. And in the course of doing that—
Were you funny?
I don't know. It's called a comedy team. So I think the comedy union required us to actually be funny.
Okay.
It was one of the rules, and they have judges in the audience all the time,
Yeah.
but they're secret judges, so you don't really know,
Oh,
which ones
really?
they are. Sometimes the entire audience is filled with secret judges, and they're like secret shoppers, and they're all just sitting there taking notes and judging. And it's a very discomforting kind of thing for a performer
It's
to have
very
to deal with
brave
that.
to do comedy.
But it is?
Yeah, I think so.
That's right, because I saw you do improv with a troupe
It's a little
at
scary.
Carlos and Charlie's.
Yes, I don't even think that's there anymore.
It's not. I mean, the building, part of the building is still there. This
It's
is on
a place
Sunset.
on Sunset
It's
Boulevard.
next to a place called the Body Shop, which does not fix automobiles. But
Thanks for pointing that out.
That's all right. It's right across the street, and it perform there. And I'm going to look up that word later on and find out exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah. So
you started out in radio.
Performing in comedy and radio and
comedy.
Then I didn't start out. I started off on stage, I guess, really, as a performer. And then I forgot. Also, as a teenager, I got signed to. It used to be important to be signed to a major label, and I luckily got signed to a major label twice while I was still, in my teens. And so I had this music background too. So all of that.
And now you have a music foreground.
I do, right? And it's right on my forehead. And on a boat, there's something. If you look at it in spelling, it's called a forecastle, but it's pronounced forecastle.
Is that what the forecastle is?
Yes, the forecastle. It's spelled forecastle.
I didn't see. You didn't know you'd learn this, did
right.
you?
And you
Peter?
could ask the boatswain, who's pronounced bosun.
Bosun. Wow, is that Scottish or something?
No, it's the way English works. And these kinds of things are important to know if you're reading a script and you see one of those words. Another one that we've experienced people struggling with is the word that's spelled blackguard, but is pronounced blackguard, like a haggard blackguard,
Or ask.
Yeah, well, that, it's a common thing. a lot of people I know say that. But yes, I think I got
I
off
think
the
you
track.
covered
So how
that.
did I get started? So the first thing I did was I replaced an actor in a cartoon one time, and it turned out the actor I replaced, after I did it, they said the part sounded too funny, and so I looped the dialogue. Then afterwards, I asked the producer, what was wrong, what was wrong with, yeah, because I didn't know why I was doing it. And I said,
Right.
what was wrong? And he said, oh, it just sounded too funny, too cartoony. That was it, too cartoony. I said, oh, okay. Could I ask what the actor's name was? He said, Mel Blanc. So,
You replaced Mel Blanc,
yes,
and
that
he
was
sounded too cartoony.
yeah,
Wow,
it sounded too cartoony. I said,
that's
of course he'd
classic.
sound cartoony. Everything he says sounds like a cartoon you've heard, you know.
Wow.
So, but that was not a break. So what was the break? I don't know. I think
we're gonna have to take a break.
yeah, right. Sorry, because you wanted me to go first. So
That's okay.
I don't know. I think maybe writing songs for Disney's, because writing songs led to performing songs, led to performing in movies for Disney's, and then later on television shows for Disney's and things like that. And then after all
You're
of that,
a Disney superstar.
well, yes, at a time, for a time.
Yeah.
And then I got an agent and started working for other people. And it was kind of fun just being there, I think. But it makes sense to work for a lot of companies, a lot of studios, I think. But anyway, I think I've answered.
That's
Have I
pretty
answered that?
good.
Peter, was there an answer buried in there somewhere? I think so, near the end.
That was an excellent answer, sir.
Great. Okay, Katie.
How did I started out, I made a demo just to see if I could maybe make some extra money working in voiceover, and I did a voiceover. One of my first jobs was just doing a voiceover for a pitch from an advertising agency to the company that made Hawaiian Punch for an ad they were going to do. And I did the voiceover, but it was on a film strip. And that got me into the Screen Actors Guild because it was on film, technically.
Oh,
And so
right.
that's how I got my SAG card. And when I graduated, I got a degree in broadcasting. And then I graduated college and thought, well, now what do I do? And it seemed like that was a possibility. So I came down to LA and got an agent and started auditioning for cartoons. And then the first cartoon, I think I did some radio commercials. I got some of those. And then the first cartoon was a Mork and Mindy episode. The Hanna-Barbera had a Mork and Mindy cartoon. And I thought I was going to be a regular. Turned out I wasn't. I did one episode.
Was Robin doing Mork?
Yeah. And Jonathan Winters, but they weren't there when I did it. So I was very sad because I thought I was going to meet them.
Pam was doing Mindy.
Dauber?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Good. Yeah, you know, when I first came out to Los Angeles, did I ever tell you about this? I used to go down to tapings and rehearsals of Mork and Mindy every Friday.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Because you knew somebody?
Because I didn't know anybody. I was new in town. I didn't know a lot of people, but a very nice woman who worked in Disney publishing, knew music publishing, knew a cameraman at Mork and Mindy, and I didn't know many people. So I thought, well, that
sounds like fun.
That was one of the 2 or 3 television shows I used to watch before I moved out here.
I used to sneak onto sets too.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't sneak onto them.
Well, I kind of snuck onto them because
really?
I liked it. Yeah, I used to work at Universal. Before 9/11, you could kind of I would just have my lunch in a little brown bag and act like I knew where I was going and walk right onto Universal and look in the sound stages and the sets and see what's going on, because you know what, I think we're fans of the industry just like you, and so all that kind of stuff is exciting and fun.
I used to walk into Paramount all the time. There's that big gate at the front, very imposing, very famous, and shows up in movies over the decades. It's almost a century old.
I guess in one of the Muppet movies.
It was very easy to walk in the side entrance.
Yeah, you just kind of figure out how to do it.
Yeah. And then for
Can't
years,
do it
I don't know
now,
if you know
though.
this, I had an office in Paramount, on the
Wow.
3rd floor of the something building. I can't remember the name of it now. The 2nd floor.
Well, and I grew up in LA, so like I was friends with
Von
somebody.
Sternberg building.
Oh, all
I
right.
passed Gene Roddenberry's
Oh.
office, where his secretary had an office, and I'd always talk to her.
Because when I was growing up, one of our family's best friends, he used to write, and he was in charge of, he was in the finance department at Fox. So sometimes, every once in a, I don't know, when we were kids, we'd go there, and his boys would just like, he became an agent actually. My friend Joe, he passed away a couple years ago, but
When you were a kid, did you go there before it was Century City, when they still had the back lot?
yeah, we used to. So one of the kids would get in the golf cart and go driving around and
Oh
get in
man, the
trouble.
back lots. There's this giant complex of acres and acres called Century City now. But before that was Century City, there was Europe was there, and the West and the Old West was
I don't
there.
remember. I don't know. I have to think because this was probably in the 70s. So I'd have to look up history.
Yeah.
So I bet you have real questions. What do you want to know?
I definitely want to know because you both have worked on ABC weekend specials. What were your memories doing that?
Being happy to work?
Yes, and also I liked those. Were those?
I know I did a Raggedy Ann and Andy one. And
Yeah, I did a few of them. I enjoyed them because you never knew who you were going to be working with. And I first met Ken.
Ken Mars?
Yeah, Ken Mars at one of those. And you know, Kenneth Mars, the famous guy I'd see in Woody Allen movies, and because you happen to live near where one of Woody Allen's characters was raised under the roller coaster at Coney Island.
Yeah,
You know?
that's right.
Cyclone?
Well, in one of the Woody Allen movies, he was supposedly raised under a roller coaster.
He shoots a lot of his movies in New York, and Ken Mars does a lot of voices, and you know him from The Little Mermaid. He played King Triton.
He played my boss.
And he's famous for on camera, but he also did a lot of voiceover.
Yeah, Kenneth Mars, as he's billed.
But yeah, that's what's fun about the specials.
So the session, he comes up to me and say, "Hi, I'm Ken Mars," and I'm. Hi, I'm Will Ryan. I'm thinking, no, it's Kenneth Mars. You know? And when Bill Shallert did that to me once, you know, early on, I said, no, it's William Shallert. Don't you know? Don't you look at your own credits?
Your name in that credit? So
Uh-huh.
you're probably wondering,
so
why
anyway,
are we together?
But let me tell you.
Oh,
let me tell you. So I did this show with Ken Mars, and I think we were Australians in it or something. It was some kind of yeah. It was New England accent, which I'd never done before, but there I was, and I did it. And then afterwards, he said, "No, this traffic's terrible. You want to go wait in a restaurant and, you know, kill some time before?" I said, "Yeah, great." So that's how we got to know each other. It was really neat. And then another one I did was called Rabbit or something, a rabbit named Rabbit, or I don't know. These were all based on books, right? I think these. Are these the CBS?
Well, there were the weekend specials and the afternoon specials. So I don't know. They have different things.
But Gordon Kent was on those, wasn't he, as a writer producer on some of them?
I don't know who that is.
Oh, he's a very good guy. He's no longer with us.
Well, you're probably wondering, why are Will and I together? Because we are actually recording today our new podcast show. I'll tell you later. That's it's a video show, so we were shooting. This is our backdrop, and that's how you caught us together.
That's why we happen to be here, you know.
Yeah, we're about to launch our second episode today.
That's actually. Right. Yeah, it goes up later tonight, I guess. So tell ya later, and ya spelled Y-A, the usual way.
The usual way. Yeah.
Well, you two are what I call the Disney dynamic duo.
All right.
I like that.
Yeah, tell them.
Now, another project you both have done was Gummy Bears. One of my memories of doing that show and working with cast stars like Corey Burton, Lorenzo Music. The list goes on and on, like with so many cast members. I mean, June Foray was on the show. Paul Winchell was on the show. Memories of doing Gummy Bears and working with the cast.
Sure. Can I go first on this one?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Thank
Because
you for asking.
the one name that wasn't mentioned, or one of the names that wasn't mentioned, I should say, is Bill Scott, who's a personal hero of mine. Bill, like Dawes Butler, I think was the original voice of more cartoon stars than Mel Blanc was. Bill was the voice of Dudley Do-Right, Bullwinkle, Mr. Peabody, Super Chicken, George of the Jungle.
Captain Crunch.
Yeah. No, that was Dawes.
Oh.
Then we go over to Dawes, and Dawes was Captain Crunch. Do you know how to spell Captain Crunch?
CAP''N.
That's right. Very good, because a lot of people, I don't know what they're thinking.
I have
say
to
Captain.
stay on my toes with Will. I need to know all these things.
Right.
Yeah, but
Right.
Bill Scott, yes.
Bill was great. He was also the head writer of the Rocky and Bullwinkle show too. Really funny guy.
Yeah, that was a wonderful opportunity for us to, and that show was the first show Disney ever produced for Saturday morning, and it came out of the record department, out of their
the two executives in charge had been in records.
Yeah, and they were given the task of coming up with a cartoon show. So I know they knew you from working on the records.
Mhm.
And then apparently they were trying to figure out who did they want on their show, and they were looking at credits of people who were already on other shows, and that's how I was fortunate enough to get to audition.
And the funny thing is, I heard this from someone at either at ABC or someone knowledgeable who said, because there were two shows that they worked on. Gummy Bears was actually on first. It was literally on a few seconds.
Couple seconds before
earlier.
Wuzzles.
And I know this because I was monitoring it with two cameras and or with the telephone. But yeah, the other one was called the Wuzzles. And one of the shows, they disliked the main executive in charge so much, one of the networks threw out every decision they made in the casting and then did their own casting. And I don't know which show it was, but Jim would know.
It must have been
you have to ask him.
Wuzzles.
Yeah.
Can't be us. Can't be us.
No, because it sounded like a dream team. You're right. It was so many great people there. Lorenzo Music, for people who don't know, had been a writer. He and his wife had been folk singers, and that's how the Smothers Brothers knew them. So they hired Lorenzo as a clever writer to be one of the writers on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, or the Smothers Comedy Brothers Hour, however it was called. And so he won Emmys for writing there, along with people like Steve Martin and others. And then Lorenzo, because he was from Minnesota, was hired to be a writer on the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Oh, how funny.
Yes, because she was living there, I guess.
You need an expert.
In the show, in the TV show. And
do you know any of these shows?
Mary Tyler Moore and Laverne and Shirley, I used to watch Nick at Night, so I would see.
Oh, great, yes,
okay,
great.
Good. So we're not completely talking over
so
your head.
at the time the Mary Tyler Moore show was on, it was quite a very good show. And then
Mr. Ryan, wasn't Lorenzo also Carlton the doorman on Rhoda?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm building up to that.
On the bus.
So there's a spin-off of Mary Tyler Moore called The Rhoda Show, which was co-created by Lorenzo Music and his writing partner Dave somebody, can't think of it right now. And so they created that show, and then Lorenzo did the voice of Carlton on that show. Then the network said, and I forget the name, Alan somebody was the head of programming at the network. I think it was CBS, was it? NBC. And said to Lorenzo and his partner, we want you guys to create a show for us. Pick any of the people we have on staff here that are contracted to us. And one of the people on the list was Bob Newhart. And they said, well, we want to work with Bob Newhart. So they created the Bob Newhart Show.
But they had a doorman too.
They did?
Didn't they? I thought he was the doorman on the Bob Newhart show.
No, he's on Rhoda.
I'm so confused.
Anyway,
he was very nice.
Oh, okay.
I'm so confused. Are you more committee? More committee? I don't know. I'm mumbling now. But anyway, he went on and did many other things. And then he became the voice of, as I call him, Garfield, your cat. Carlton, your doorman, and Garfield, your cat. So yeah, good old Lorenzo.
Did you work on Garfield?
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah, you were the rabbit, right? Mr.
In
Ryan?
one episode, I was a rabbit, and I was in several episodes. Yes.
And
Uh,
I'm sorry.
oh, yeah. And then Mark wrote. Mark Evanier was writing those, and he they were recording an episode one day, and an actor at Buzzy's Recording, which has about 4 studios there, maybe, or 5, and they're
Yeah.
next to each other. So if you're taking a break from one, you could kind of walk down the hall and see what's going on in another room. Some actor walked in and just kind of was, or he stood by the door and was watching. And Mark said, "Come on, you can sit down if you want." So he came in and he sat down and he watched this. And he said, "Boy, I really love this show." And he said, and Mark said, "Would you like to be on it?" And he said, "Sure." And he said, "Okay, I'll write an episode. What are you doing next Tuesday?" And I said, "I don't know. I think I'm free." He said, "I'll write a part for you, and we're recording next Tuesday." And that was James Earl Jones.
Oh, how funny.
So, and then Mark called me up and he said, "I'm writing an episode with James Earl Jones and you, where you guys are rivals, and I want you to do that, you know, that like the rabbit kind of voice there." And oh boy, and and you're both trying to, you're ghosts, and you're trying to scare Garfield out of this house. So it's I'm playing this little rabbit. You can't boo, and James Earl Jones is the other one with that booming voice of his. And he came to the session, and he was so nice.
Yeah, he is really nice. I
yeah.
used to see him at Buzzy's too. And it's really interesting because a lot of voice actors, people don't know, are dyslexic. Some of the most famous
Right.
ones. And James Earl Jones told me himself that he
Yes.
was dyslexic, and I was really amazed.
Yes, I didn't realize it at the time. One of the reasons he seemed so nice is because I'd say, well, gee, that was really nice, you know, and or whatever. He'd say stuff like that, and talking like Bob Newhart would talk, you know. But he was actually stammering, and he does have a little bit of a stammer, which comes across as very not powerful, not the voice of God, not Darth Vader, you know, but just as humble, you know, and nice. And the other thing that impressed me, and this is the second time I was impressed by an actor deciding to memorize his part when he didn't have to. And then of course I realized later, oh, I get it. Yes, he was dyslexic. And the first time that happened was with
Frank was, I think.
Frank Welker?
Dyslexic? Or is that like a
now I think he told me that. I could be wrong. Maybe we shouldn't say that.
Yeah,
but
certainly hasn't affected anything.
But you know, people with incredible skills. Did you ever see Rusi write backwards, like the mirror?
Oh, really?
Cursive, she could do that.
Oh, that's
Rusi
great.
Taylor, she could write like so you could read it in a mirror backwards. I mean, she had these crazy skills.
I used to try to. I haven't done that since I was a kid, but I used to do that. I don't think I was impressive or very good at it, but I did learn how to do that because I read that Leonardo da Vinci had done that.
So you have to.
Yeah, right. Well, you know.
I think he has more questions.
Yes, I have to do it now.
Yes.
Oh wait, but I just want to finish up. The other actor who did that was did this on-camera show that Phil Barron was also in, and Bill Irwin, who's in Land Before Time, was in, and who else? Tony Pope was in it, and it was called The Rainbow Patch, and we had guest stars every episode. And this one episode, Bruce Jenner was the star, and he memorized his entire thing. And we had cue cards on the show for the guest stars. And
was
and
it
then,
on camera?
It was on camera. And then years later, I find out that he's dyslexic also. So, yeah.
I did that.
Anyway, what else haven't you asked? That would be happy to answer.
I do gotta ask this question because when Pat Music was on here and Michael Bell, I asked them this question too. Like, and I believe I asked Roger Bumpus this as well. As a voice, when doing voice acting, there's a role that might be required for you to scream. Like, what is your method on when you have to scream, and what is your opinion on screaming when doing voice acting, when the character has to scream?
Well, if they're paying you, you better scream.
Yeah, and the thing is to know how to do it. In radio, they would have stunt screamers for the stars. If a big star was on the show, then the screaming would be done by somebody else. And in movies, same thing. We think of Fay Wray screaming, doing all that screaming in King Kong, but it was, she probably did some screaming
Do
here
you
and
do
there.
your own screaming?
Um, not if I can get away with it, but I don't think I'm the big guest star from the movies usually in the projects I work on for people who speak English. But I, knowing, having been in rock and roll bands and so on, you kind of figure out how to scream without killing your throat. Now,
You've got to, project from your diaphragm and
Or-
support your voice.
or just crowd the mic and go, wow, which isn't as painful as it sounds if you know how to do it right. And
I don't know. I just do it and
am I right?
support.
We're sitting in a room with a guy who really knows how to scream.
Yeah, I mean, if you open there's a technique to it. And hopefully it won't hurt you depending on the type of scream. And we always save our screams for the end.
Oh,
Yes, because it kills you. There are a couple of characters I've done, and they're not enjoyable to do. And one is Yosemite Sam.
oh,
And the last time I checked, and I haven't checked in a while, but I think there are 3 of us who do Yosemite Sam, and it's a killer. If you do it right, you're not going to be working for
Do
the
you know
next day.
I do a character based on Yosemite
Oh, really?
Sam? Yeah.
And
I have a little, he's around here somewhere, but on a show called Yokai Watch, I do Usapion's voice, and he's like, he gets all mad and everything, and dag nabbit, Mom, Usapion! And then I kind of based him on Yosemite
Wow.
Sam.
Well, you know who you could blame for all that? Red Skelton, because Yosemite Sam's character is based on San Fernando Red, on the very popular Red Skelton radio show of the 40s. Because Red Pepper Sam would come in, and one of his signature things would be, whoa now, whoa, whoa, when I say whoa, whoa, that kind of thing. I'm not going to do anymore.
See?
Yeah. I mean,
You should only do
for
it
a
if you're
check.
getting paid. Are you going to pay us?
Not at these rates. No. We're just idling time and enjoying.
I do want to ask too, because on the auto commentary on one of my favorite shows, The Simpsons, they said that Kirk Douglas, when recording in the studios, hated using headphones during the voice acting because it hurt his ears. What is your opinion on using headphones during voice acting?
I prefer not to use them if I don't have to.
Yeah, and maybe because I come from music, I like using them. I like hearing what's going on around me, how other people are. And plus, depending on the microphone, I like working the microphone. Some microphones you don't work, shotgun mics or something like that. But if there's a microphone that you can work, then I like doing that.
I guess, yeah, you can hear yourself. I guess I just assume, I don't know. I know when I'm leaning in and I know when I'm not.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I just don't really, I guess well, you can always take one can off. You need one ear free, I think, so you can hear what you really sound like. I don't know. Most of my stuff is character work, so I think I can hear myself better.
Yeah.
I think when you have headphones on, it makes you talk louder. I think.
Oh no, I like it because you could be quieter.
How can you be quieter?
You can, because you could hear
If I'm too quiet, then I get loud, so I can hear myself.
But you're right. I often just have one ear
Yeah.
on and one, but that's doing music.
What about you, Pete? I see
Yeah,
you're
what do you
not
think?
wearing headphones.
Yeah, right.
I do have this nice microphone though. I instead of using headphones, I traded it for a microphone.
Oh, great. Yeah. What kind is it?
Oh, this is a Yeti.
Yeah, don't they roam around on the mountaintops?
They do.
Now, this question is for Will Ryan. You were part of one of my favorite cartoon shows growing up on Cartoon Network, Courage the Cowardly Dog, as the Duck Brothers, where you used a Ringo Starr impersonation. I loved when you did that accent. What was your memories doing that show?
Well, a number of things. First of all, I didn't realize this, but evidently for a few years, it listed Ringo Starr as being the voice in IMDb, which Mary told me that,
Oh.
and so he was surprised to find out that I was doing it. And I don't know how many brothers there were on the show, but I was doing all 4 of them. and because Ringo's kind of that, and then Paul's a little bit lighter, and John is more acerbic, and the most languid, the most Scousian one would be George. George Harrison, Scouse of distinction. But yeah, so working on that, well, it was unusual because it was a New York-based show.
Oh.
And I happened to be in New York writing and producing a show called whatever it was
The
called.
Wondrous World of Dr. Seuss.
Thank you. That's it. Yes. I almost said welcome to the Pooh Corner.
See, it's a good thing I'm here.
Yes, it certainly is. Or as we say in Georgia, it certainly is. Yeah. But one of the neat things, well, first of all, the director was a very interesting, crazy guy, terrific guy. And I got cast as, I will tell you in a moment.
Okay.
Tell you later. Tell you later. That's the name of the show.
That's true. We'll have to talk about this. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So Arnold Stang, the great talent, Arnold Stang, was cast to be my sidekick. I was playing the big toe, and it's like there are 5 toes, I guess, and I don't know who did the other 3 or if they even talked, but I was the big toe. See, I'm the big toe. See,
on a fat lady gets it. See,
right. And Arnold Stang was the little toe. So this is so great, so exciting. And I said, is he going to be there? Is he going to be at the session? And yeah, he's going to be at the session. So I show up the session, and Arnold couldn't make it that day. He was going to come in another day. So I didn't meet him that day, but they gave me his phone number, and I called him up.
Really?
Yeah.
How odd.
Because I was looking forward to meeting him. And so first time I called him up, he was in the middle of eating dinner, and he asked me to call him back later. So I called him back later, and he said, I wish I could do his voice right now, but it was something. I said, first of all, I have to apologize for calling you during dinner. He said, yeah, I nearly choked. And the way he said choked, he squeaked into a falsetto, which I can't do right now because we've been talking all day. And it was so funny. It was so perfect. Yeah, I nearly choked. It was so Arnold Stang. Have you ever seen Arnold Stang?
I loved him as Top Cat, though. Like when he does his Phil Silvers impression, I love it.
Yeah, and he's doing Phil Silvers in that, which shows that he was an actor. He didn't always play little guys with weak chins and glasses, but there he's playing a real con man, a Phil Silvers guy, and of course that's very similar to the character he played for Famous Pictures Paramount when they were doing Herman the Mouse. Catnip, the cats meets Herman the Mouse.
Oh yeah.
And he was Herman, and he played Herman for over 10 years. It's Uncle Hyman. and he was like, yeah, he's the mouse that shows up and takes care of the cat in every episode. Hooray, Uncle Hyman. Hiya, fellas, what's new? Uncle Hyman. Well, the cat is, we're trying to put a bell on the cat. Leave it to me, fellas. Then, most of those cartoons, there are probably only about 5 or 6 lines that he has to do, and they're usually about the same. All of those shows, like Baby Huey, the same thing. I think he's I think you're a wolf, and you're trying to eat me. He always realizes it when there's 30 seconds left. It was like the Popeye cartoons, where it's the same story over and over, but they're interesting. They're kind of fun. It's variations on a theme. I think the only weak thing, somehow I'm talking about the Paramount cartoons now, but the only weak one in there was Casper. It was the same thing too, but it was so much of the same, and the characters weren't as innately funny.
I always wanted to be Casper, and you know what? I got to do a voice.
Really?
For Casper, not in the movie, but for a ride.
I always thought
they do voices for some rides.
Because you're Richie Rich, and I always thought that Casper was Richie Rich after
I thought the same thing. I thought Casper was the ghost of Richie Rich.
Yeah, right.
Because they look the same.
Right.
Yeah. How funny.
And speaking of Richie Rich, though, Katie, what were your memories working on Richie Rich?
Well, it's always great to play a classic character like that. So yeah, and I was Richie. So it was just fun, and really the
You
fun
wanted to
part.
write you a check for $1 billion, she could do it. Won't cash, but she could do it.
Yeah, it's hard to remember how you get all those jobs, but the most fun thing for me is always who I'm working with. The
Yeah,
cast and
yeah.
who else is, and I believe uh And Aubergenois, what's his name? What's his
Rene.
Rene.
Rene Aubergenois.
Yeah, he did a voice with. So that was fun to work with him, and
Yeah, I did a commercial with him for McDonald's. We were Irish setters with Irish accents.
How lovely.
So Rene Aubergenois.
So that's to
Is an
me.
Irish setter.
I always feel like I'm a supporting actor, no matter what, because there's always these other great actors there.
Yeah, each of us has been very lucky. Like on that show out of New York, I got to work with some top New York voice guys, which is a rare thing because you'd have to go back to the 40s or 50s to be a top New York voice guy, I think generally. Do you think?
I don't think.
I did not work with
I don't
Jackson
ever
Beck.
think.
Oh no, I did. He was the narrator of G.I. Joe, Jackson Beck, but he did it from New York, so I never met him.
Oh.
Yes, Pete.
Yes.
Is Pete? Should we call you Pete or Peter?
Or Petey.
You can call me Pete, Peter, Petey. It's all good.
Okay, great.
Will, I have a question for you. Like, you mentioned like you worked with some of the greats. One of my favorite roles you worked with Alan Young, where he was Scrooge McDuck, and you worked on Mickey's Christmas Carol as Willie the Giant. Of course, Pete, which when I was a kid, I mean, you did a great job because it scared the hell out of me when I was younger. So you did an excellent job, like portraying that Pete character, because he scared me when I was a young kid. But what were your memories doing Mickey's Christmas Carol as both you were Pete, Willie the Giant, and the Mole?
Yes, and I think a few other one-liners in there too. But well, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that show. I can't remember if it was the first time I met Al. Yes, it was. I went in one day. I had auditioned for the show, and then a few months later, or at some point later, I come in to officially read the lines for Willie the Giant. Where they had incorporated some of the ad libs I put into the audition, which was fun.
Aren't you clever?
Isn't that lucky?
Oh, yes.
Right. So I would have been upset if those ad libs were uttered by someone else when I went to see them.
Wait a minute, those are my ad libs.
Right.
Bring them over here.
Yeah.
Give me them back.
Right. But
return
so I went in
my ad libs.
One day I went in and recorded all of his lines, and then the next day I had lunch with the director, Bernie Mattinson. And we set it up. So I went to join him in this restaurant on the lot at Disney's, which is no longer there, at the Coral Room, and he was sitting with Alan Young. So this is great, and so that's the first time I met Alan.
And then we worked for years with Alan. Will and I also work on a radio show called Adventures in Odyssey that we worked on for 34 years together.
It stars you and me and Detective Polhouse.
Yeah, you had Phil Proctor on. He told us about and he works on this show too. So we've been doing that show for 34 years together. It's like the longest running, I don't know, consecutive series. That's
longest running dramatic radio series, professional in the United States.
The northern hemisphere of the universe.
Could be
something.
And what else?
But Alan worked on that for a long time with us.
To put it in perspective, the Alan Young radio show only lasted. There were 3 different ones on 3 different networks, and in toto they only lasted maybe 5 years or 6. The famous Jack Benny radio program lasted less than 20 years.
And so we're beating that.
And Burns and Allen, same thing, because television came in. And all the great radio shows haven't lasted as long as our show has now lasted, which is pretty amazing, pretty weird.
One of the great radio shows.
Yeah, but we've had terrific people. Again, we've got to work with people from radio. And I'm thinking of people like Parley Bear, who is a an on-camera actor that people would recognize if they saw him. But on radio, he was the original sidekick to Marshall Matt Dillon on the radio series Gunsmoke. He was the original Chester on that.
But a lot of the people that you've mentioned from cartoons have also come and worked on Adventures in Odyssey with us. So it's pretty fun.
That was my next question I was gonna ask, like the memory, because I was gonna ask like definitely your time on Adventures in Odyssey, because like you just you definitely answered that question. That was one of my questions I had, and I loved definitely hearing that. Sorry if I'm babbling, I'm just jitters. Now I want to get your thoughts, Katie, on working on Bobby's World.
What's she going to say? Find out after this break.
Well, Howie worked on Muppet Babies with us the first year or two because he was Skeeter's voice and he was Animal.
Was he also Bunsen Honeydew?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so because I think he left before Bunsen, and so Dave Coulier took over for him. But that Skeeter voice is the voice he used for Bobby. So Howard, being the very smart businessman, he said, you know what, this Muppet Baby show is pretty fun, but I think I'll make my own show. So he created Bobby's World that Ginny McSwain directed, and yeah, luckily I got to come and work on that a couple times, do some voices. It wasn't a regular, but
I was on one episode, but
were you?
maybe it's not on IMDb. Yeah.
Oh. And
we did it at B&B.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
I frankly, no, I don't remember.
now, when doing a voiceover work, though, is it usually like by yourself in the booth, or do you do it with a collaboration of the voice actors all together?
Up until COVID, it's mostly been everybody together if they can make it.
Oh, well.
Yes, except Disney.
Except for Disney,
in recent years,
they've put everybody by themselves.
Other
In
than-
their features.
yeah.
Their features.
well, in features, but also on the shows. Sad. I'm doing a new series called. It hasn't gone on the air yet. It's not Mickey Mouse Clubhouse is on the air every day, but there's a new one in production called Mickey, which has been publicly announced. It's called Mickey Mouse Fun House.
I didn't know this. You never told me
Oh, really?
this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, look at you, Mr. Working Actor.
but
Now,
How about that?
yes, well,
We'll have more fun
believe me, it's
opening
nothing
up
to speak of.
residuals after. No, that's wonderful.
yes, it is. It
Yeah.
is. So, yeah.
What
So I
was the
gonna say
question?
about it.
Oh, working separately.
So
you
yeah, they're
can't-
working. It's all separate, and it's
I
really
think they
annoying
think
because
it
you don't even
saves
know who
them
you're
money.
working with.
I think they think it saves
No,
them money.
It
but
costs
I don't
studio
know.
time.
I don't know
know,
what the
it's-
deal is.
They
It's not fun.
a
As
lot of
fun
these
as being
a
together.
lot of these companies like to.
That's why I can't even do an interview by myself. I have to have Will on. It just feels too lonely.
They like to spend money in the wrong places, and yeah, and add more layers of executives and things. Sometimes.
More executives. We need more executives.
You know, look at one of the funniest shows ever in the history of cartoon shows on television, Rocky and Bullwinkle. It was the cast, and Jay would be in the booth, but Bill was really directing, and that was it. You know, there weren't an outside thing. They didn't bring people in to record separately. It was like, boom, let's do this one. Okay, now let's knock out this one. Let's knock out this one.
It was different because he's an independent guy.
Yeah,
And
right.
that's different.
right.
So yes, we've answered that question. How many are left?
too many to count, Miss Leigh. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But I do want to get Will, your time on. You mentioned before Land Before Time as your role as Petey. Memories working on Land Before Time.
Well, it's always fun working with Don Bluth.
So you worked back in the time of dinosaurs?
Yes,
Is
I
that
did.
how old you are?
Yes, it's true. Yeah, and
okay.
you can look up on IMDb. They have me born in 1939.
How did that
I
happen?
don't know. It's pretty
Please
amazing.
correct that. He is
Yeah.
not that old,
Yeah,
as you
right.
can see.
Right. It's been corrected 3 or 4 times, but it keeps going back to that. And then that's been picked up all over the internet too. But and you know, Bill Farmer had that problem too. I don't know if he's got it fixed yet.
Mm.
But working on that, it was fun working with Don because there was a lot of ad-libbing in that. and that was done over a period of a year. When it started, oh, the very first session we did for that was on the Disney lot in the good old, was it stage B? I can't remember now. In the good old recording studio there, where they had done Alice in Wonderland and all kind, where they always recorded, and you were recording on, we were recording on film still, which is the way it used to be. And then later sessions were done elsewhere, but that was fun, and it was so nice to be recording back in that place, because at that point Disney's had started doing television, and they didn't record on the lot because they wanted to save money, and they would record at random recording studios here and there, or hither and yon if you prefer.
I don't.
And, really?
No.
How is Heather? How is
Not really.
Okay. So anyway, so it was fun to be back there. And then one time while they were changing tape or changing film or whatever, Don and I were sitting around, and he was telling me about how things were going in terms of moving to Ireland and things like that. And I said, boy, it sure is great to be back in this room again. Then I looked at Don Bluth, and I realized, I said, well, it must be great for you, and it must be odd for Don Bluth to be, first of all, back on Disney property. He had famously left the studio years before to start his own company. And so that was just, awfully interesting. And most people don't know that. I was talking to, Howard Green and other Disney experts about a year ago, more than a year ago, before COVID-19 came along. And nobody knew that, that Don had, because somebody said, Don hasn't been back on the lot since. I said, no, wait a minute.
I beg to differ.
Yeah, right, yes, yeah.
Now, you both have worked on the Smurfs, though. What were your memories doing that show?
Oh, that was great. Well, I got to work with Paul Winchell because he played my uncle. So that was fun. And Lucille Bliss, who was Smurfette, actually helped me make my first demo when I lived in San Francisco. So that was fun. Yeah.
Oh. So you've been to her San Francisco home, right? And I've been to, were you ever in her apartment in Hollywood?
Yes.
Me too. Yeah, right. I remember she had a poster of like the Land of Alakazam or something like that. One of those rare cartoons that I'd never seen before, but had seen the artwork. It was a Japanese film that had been dubbed into English, and it was kind of neat to see. But yes, and as for me working on it, it was maybe the first time I recorded at HB, and it was interesting to see their process, and which was you do a table read and then you record it. You read it in one room, then you head out there and you do it. And then
it was an interesting place, Hanna-Barbera, which is no longer there because
the building is there.
The director's booth, if I remember, it was raised up a little bit, right?
Yes.
So he was up.
Yes.
Talking, directing us.
Not as much as like at Bell Sound in Cleveland, in New York City, or Abbey Road, where you're 40 feet high looking down, but it was elevated a little bit. And one day I decided, I called up Gordon Hunt.
Hunt, the father of Helen Hunt.
Yes.
Yeah, right. And I said, I've worked with Mel on projects, but Mel was never there, and we weren't there at the same time. I said, I
want to meet him.
No, I'd already met him many times, but I said, I'd like to be at a session and watch him work. And could I do that? And he said, sure, we're doing a next whatever. And I was free to do it. So I went down there one day just to see that. So I was sitting back there in that booth, looking slightly down at Mel doing that. And it was interesting because, again, it's one of those shows where his main line is, I'm Captain Caveman. Only grittier, and so, and hardly anything else, like, ooh, ah, and maybe a few lines here and there. One of those kinds of shows. And so what they had wisely done was, every time it came to I'm Captain Caveman, they had recorded Mel doing it once, and they just played that onto the track, and that was that. They probably could have archived the oohs and ahs too.
Well, about the time that that was happening, because when I got started and first moved to LA, Ginny let me come and watch a Flintstones episode get recorded. So I got to watch him work. But he used to be on oxygen. Drag that around.
I didn't bring that up.
Oh.
He was at that time too. Yeah.
It was late in his career, so that's probably, they saved him the effort.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, Mel had some health problems, and so he was carrying that little oxygen thing around, and yeah.
So I guess I'm tactless compared to Will when it comes to telling stories.
I definitely gotta ask like this question to Mr. Ryan, because I loved your work, when I was a little boy. I mean, Katie too. Like I loved your work, ever since I was a little boy. One of the shows I used to watch as a child, Will, was Welcome to Pooh's Corner, and you played not just Rabbit, but you played Tigger too. And one song that always catches my mind though is the one where Tigger sings in front of a mirror, and it's like a motivational, like it's about like like a motivation song. It's like called "You're the Only You." Where I think it goes like this: "You're the only you, and I'm the only me." Like, and I just loved it. Like, so I just wanted to get your memories on working on Welcome to Pooh's Corner and playing Tigger and Rabbit.
Let's see. First of all, I did not write that. Which Katie just asked me if I wrote that one. I wrote a lot of the songs in there. I'm suspecting if it made a big impact, that it might be one of the ones the Sherman Brothers wrote, because those were repeated a lot. And but I introduced a Sherman Brothers song as Tigger. Could have been that one. And
I know that song too. I remember that.
Wow. And I introduced a song as Rabbit, written by the Sherman Brothers, and I introduced a song as Eeyore, which was written by the Sherman Brothers.
Well, after that show, we did Dumbo Circus together. Did you watch that too?
I didn't get to see that, but tell me more about it.
You're the only you. Wow. Oh man. Let's see. I just
same people did Dumbo Circus, who did he'll do a song for you. He's getting his brain warmed up.
Ta-ta for now, but not forever. Ta-ta for now, but not for keeps. You got to do it. When I say ta-ta for now, it merely means I'll see you soon. Not a moment, a jiffy, a month or a day or a week or a couple of weeks. Ta-ta for now. Say it whenever you realize. I'm kind of doing this loosely. You cannot stay, because I'm trying to think of the chords. And when it's time to tell a friend, when it's time to tell a friend farewell, I've got the perfect way. You simply say, ta-ta for now. Something like that. Anyway.
So then they made a show about Dumbo Circus.
And the voice of Dumbo, the one and only voice of Dumbo.
So right I got to be Dumbo, and Will was Barnaby the dog, and he wrote a lot of the scripts and a lot of the songs. And they tried not to let me sing as much as possible, but I got a few songs in there.
Katie, like I think you should sing more often, because and this is what I'm gonna get at, because I loved your work on Muppet Babies as Baby Rolf. Like there's 3 times where you sang so beautifully and so eloquently as Rolf. 3 songs, I'll never forget it. The Future's Counting on You, you're special to me. That's another one, and of course working with your co-star and a good friend of mine, Greg Berg, when you sang Look a Little Bit Closer. Future's inside you. Like I cried as a little boy, like listening to a song. Says how you sang the song was so beautiful and so eloquent. Like memories on working on Muppet Babies. What you had, and of course playing Rolf.
Well, I will say that maybe I wasn't as encouraging to Katie back in those days as I should have been, because Katie is not a trained singer, but she can produce all the notes, and she can sing on pitch, and she can sing on time. And but it takes effort. Maybe effort's not the word. It takes concentration.
I can sing in character, but you know what? It's such a blessing. I think those songs are really sweet, and especially You're Special to Me. That is actually I'll probably post it, because Valentine's Day is coming up, and I like to share that. I have found it on YouTube. And it's a really, really special episode, and it's a very special song. And just thinking about it might make me cry, because
not the only one.
Yeah,
Wow.
like I said, I'm usually, although having this conversation, I realize I have played the lead in several shows, but I always feel like I'm the supporting person, and I felt like Rolf most of my career. And the person who wrote the episode, they were always apologizing to me that, oh, Rolf doesn't have too many lines in this show, and I'd say, I don't care. I'm happy to be here. And then they wrote that episode, and I was really touched because it was, him singing how he felt about everybody. And that cast, I think we worked about 9 years together, and we were really close, and we all were very special to each other. And it was such an honor to be able to sing that song, and I felt exactly what the words expressed. And it was nice.
And there will be more of Katie singing in this in this new show that we're doing called Tell You Later, because I'm encouraging Katie to sing more, because I realized,
He's making me sing.
when we were doing Dumbo Circus, and I was directing people in their singing, like Hal Smith, who had a band, and so was musical, and others. There were different backgrounds of the actors, but yeah, Katie can do all this stuff, and it's worth spending time to
And
do
I
it.
was pretty young. I mean, even when I go in to do stuff now, because I have, 40 years experience, I'll say, don't worry. I may not get it right the first time. I promise you I'll get it. Just give me some time. But I can't read notes, and I'm not a, professional singer who walks on stage to the band, says, let me see the sheet music, and just belts out
This is
something.
garbage, but I'll sing it.
Yeah, but no, that's not me. But, it's I can do it with enough takes.
So we actually sang about 4 songs today earlier,
Yeah,
right?
we did.
None of the songs are as exquisite as the ones you've
But
mentioned.
you know what song I love sing, because I mean, it's like a dream come true. I'll tell you, the first time we ever sang Muppet Babies, when they told us we were going to sing, I'm like, oh, yikes, because I hadn't really sung, and took us to a Wilder Brothers to record this in the real recording studio. They were separate sessions from our
Music recording.
Yeah,
studio.
and I had headphones like, rock and roll people. And that was like, new thing for me to have headphones on. And I was just so nervous
Did they
about
give you
it.
your own toy piano?
No.
Because you're doing
yeah,
Ralph.
I know.
Just
I know.
Okay.
So that was a really interesting experience. But then but there's certain genres that I just personally like to sing. So I remember when we got to sing Green Ranger, that was really fun. I loved Green Ranger. He's no stranger to danger. I mean, I've got all, most of the songs we sang memorized, because we had to, listen. They'd send us a cassette, and we'd listen and listen and listen. So we'd be prepared when we got in the studio. But as Will knows, my timing isn't always perfect.
But there are a lot of professional singers out there whose timing is not
Really?
perfect. Yeah. Eddie Fisher.
So the writer, Janice Liebhardt, I don't know if you met her at all, but she'd take my hand and squeeze it when it was time to start singing. So,
I had to direct Jonathan Winters singing a song, and Jonathan evidently had no sense of pitch. But so now the problem, I said, don't worry, this isn't really a song. I know, I wrote it. All you have to do is come in when I point, so, and just say it, just speak the words, and we'll cut it together, and along with everything else, it'll be musical. And so there are people who would surprise you that aren't, that aren't nearly as good singers as Katie is.
Thank you.
And and the reason I say that also is because June Foray, you could hear her singing in old shows and on records and all kinds of things. But by the time I got to know her in the 80s, she didn't feel she could sing anymore, because she overheard she was out in the studio, and the mic in the booth was open, and then the engineer said to Walter Lantz, "She can't sing, can she?" and
Oh.
that just affected her so much. She really thought she couldn't sing, but she could.
Mm.
So I'd get her into the studio and we'd do it and we'd record her. And this is before we had a variable speed oscillator in terms of, you know, fixing an entire performance. And or what do we call it now? What do you call it? Harmonizers, you know, things like that. And she could sing. She could sing. She could come in on at the right spot, and she could hit the
Yeah.
notes. And it just takes a few
I'm
takes.
looking
That's all.
I'm looking up the your special to me online because I was trying to remember. Star and Maya wrote the script, and they were like assistants. They weren't normal writers. They came up with it on their own. And Star actually passed away. She was a really young woman
Wow.
while we were working, and she had to have something was wrong with her, and they tried to do a lung and heart transplant on her at UCLA.
Wow.
So it's really special.
It is, and definitely one of my favorite songs on Muppet Babies. I do have a couple of final questions though before we conclude though. Will, your memories on doing the Adventures of Teddy Ruxpin?
I have many memories. I don't know if we have time for all of them, but that was well, boy, what can I say? It was
New and exciting.
it was a project. I'll say it was a project that had been worked on for years. I first met the people involved with it years
Well,
before
they were
we.
on Pooh Corner, right? The people. I mean, it was animatronics. Was it part of that group?
Yeah, yeah. Coincidentally, Ken Forsey was involved in making the animatronics for those shows, but I'd never met him. I think Disney Archives or Disney, yeah, somebody at Disney's had recommended me as a person who could do voices, and so I met the people, and they showed me this project they had and talked about it, and we're trying to line up financing. 6 months later, I get a call. We're still working on it. A year later, I get a call. Finally, they got financing. It was amazing. So we started recording episodes, and Terry McGovern was originally Teddy Ruxpin.
No kidding.
Yeah, and but Terry was he just got
Who's launch pad?
yeah, yeah, and Terry had just got an on-camera series, and we recorded, I think, 4 episodes. When I say episodes, I mean 4 of these cassette tapes that would go into the doll and so on. And so he called me up and he said, you know, you're gonna be hearing about this, but I'm gonna be leaving the series, and I hate to do it, but I got this on camera thing, and it's pays a lot more, and you know, so I got to concentrate on that. And I said, okay, I get it. So later that night, I got a call from Ken and George, who was handling the music, saying, Terry has left the show. Do you have any ideas of what we can do? And so I said, well, remember that
Ideas?
album?
I got a million of them.
Remember that album of Willio and Philio? I said, well, you know, the other guy is Phil Barron. Here's his phone number, and call him up. And because I had already recorded my parts. Grubby was singing the lower harmonies, and Terry was singing the higher harmonies. And Terry was not primarily a singer, whereas Phil Barron was an excellent singer, a beautiful tenor voice. And George had met George Wilkins had met Phil, but so they called Phil in. I think that night they called him up that night. He met with them the next day, and then we re-recorded the first 4. Then we continued working on the rest of those. So that's kind of how that little part of it started, and it went on, and it was fun working on that. Tony Pope was on that.
I worked on it.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Of course. Yeah. We're Prince Aaron and Princess Aruzia on that, and Rusi was was the
she
other
was
female
Aruzia
character.
for the animated one. Oh, Fiona, Fiona, the
Fiola,
fairy or
Fiola,
something.
maybe. Yeah. And
I was on the cassette.
I was a number of characters on that actually, but I remember one day you pointed this out to me in a session. You probably don't remember it, and I finished something where it was my dialogue, and you pointed out to me, do you realize that you just did 4 pages all by yourself of different characters talking to each other? And I hadn't noticed it, but you pointed it out, and then I thought, oh, that's
He's
interesting.
pretty talented.
Yeah. But yeah.
I
So
see.
Last question. Here we go.
Katie, as I mentioned earlier, I am a huge fan of Darkwing Duck, and your honker Muddlefoot is one of my favorite characters on the show. What were your memories on working on Darkwing Duck?
Yeah,
where did you record it?
B&B.
Okay.
I think.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the big studio. It was great. We had so many great guests on the show. But it was just so much fun watching Jim Cummings, who also worked on Dumbo Circus. That was his first show ever. And then he got to play Darkwing and all the ad libs, and Will Terry was in that show too. But just I think Jim's hilarious, and watching Christine I told you I'm more like a fly on the wall than actually paying any attention to what I'm supposed to be doing, apparently. But yeah, and watching Christine do Gosling's voice, because she was just so surprising in all of her deliveries. And then watching Jim go from being Darkwing to Herb Muddlefoot, my dad, who is just such a hysterical character.
And,
We had so much fun.
and Dana Hill, who played your brother.
And Dana, yeah, I miss her.
Now, before we conclude, Will and Katie, this is the part where I allow all my guests, like, this is because this is an open forum. You guys can talk about anything you want. The floor is both.
Now we did.
Right.
What do you mean?
We got so far off the subject, we went around it right back.
What are you talking about?
360 degrees.
So you have nothing. There's nothing. This is an open forum. You guys can talk about anything. If you have nothing.
I think we covered it.
Yeah, I just like to say that after graduating from Yale, working on Broadway was so much fun. And then, oh, wait a minute. No, that's my brother.
Somebody else.
That's Phil Proctor. He's my brother.
Just, you know what? If people like hearing us babble on, please go to Tell You Later on YouTube. And we have our Patreon, which is patreon.com/tellyoulater. And check us out. If you like hearing this, there's a lot more there.
Yeah, we're following, Peter, we're following in your footsteps.
I wanted to
He's
say.
following in the right, I'm following in the left.
I do want to say this too, because the premise of my
Ad destra and a sinistra.
Stop speaking Latin.
Sorry.
I want to say too, because the final thing I say though too before we conclude the interview, but I just want to say that the premise of my show is my way, like, of interviewing people I grew up watching when I was a kid, and also giving my thank yous, like, for the and my appreciation, to show my gratitude and appreciation for those characters you gave me watching growing up. Those childhood memories still. To this day, I will remember all the characters, whether it's Willie the Giant, whether it's Honker Muddlefoot, or Rolf, or Petey, or the Duck Brothers, and that's why I thank you for not only this interview. I gotta say thank you for those childhood memories you gave me, and you guys are legends in 3 different calibers: Disney, voiceover, and of course the 80s and 90s for all 90s kids. And here's something you guys definitely deserve, and that is, thank you, Katie. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Will.
Well, we'd like to say you're welcome, Peter, right now. And I'd also like to say, hiya, pal. I wonder if I could borrow some money.
Do you accept invisible currency, sir?
Okay, yeah, that's better than Bitcoin. It's invisible. If you lose your computer, it doesn't matter.
There you go.
I'm going to work on the editing for this episode, but definitely I'm going to send you both a copy of this when it's done.
Oh, great. You send the raw thing, too, if you want.
Yeah, please
Yeah.
send the raw if you can. Maybe we can use it.
We like our mistakes better than our performances.
Sometimes.
Again, thank you so much. It was a total honor and pleasure.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you so much.
Adios.
Have an awesome day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.